It's all I have left, but I know you need it more." On a rainy night, a young widow gave her last $20 to a stranger in need, expecting nothing in return. She never knew his name, never imagined she'd see him again. But 40 years later, the sound of military vehicles outside her home would prove that kindness has a way of coming back stronger than ever. Today's story is proof that a single act of kindness can echo through time in ways no one could ever imagine. Let's get started. Emma Carter, 68, still lived in the same small house in Maple Ridge where she had raised her 3 children alone. Time had not been kind to the place. Its once bright paint had faded, peeling away in long, tired strips. The roof leaked every time it rained, forcing Emma to set out buckets in different rooms, hoping the water wouldn't soak through the sagging ceiling. The wooden steps leading up to the porch creaked ominously under her feet, and every winter she worried one misstep would send her tumbling. Her beloved garden, once full of vibrant roses and fragrant lavender, was now an overgrown tangle of weeds, choked by neglect. She used to spend hours tending to it, back when her hands didn't ache and her knees didn't protest with every movement. Now she could only watch from the window, wishing she had the energy to restore what time had taken. But on a fixed pension, home repairs were an impossible dream. Life had tested Emma in ways most couldn't imagine. In 1982, she was a young mother struggling to make ends meet after losing her husband Jack, a local police officer, in the line of duty. He had died protecting an innocent family during a home invasion. The town honored him as a hero, but medals didn't put food on the table or keep the cold out in winter. Even in those hardest years, Emma kept a coffee can by her door, filled with spare change for anyone who needed help. She'd give her last dollar if it meant someone else wouldn't go without. In the early days after Jack's passing, Emma barely slept. Nights were spent at the kitchen table, sorting through unpaid bills, trying to stretch every last dollar. The life insurance payout wasn't nearly enough, and what little she received was quickly swallowed by funeral costs and daily necessities. She took on whatever work she could, cleaning houses, sewing clothes, even scrubbing floors at the local diner after hours. Some nights her hands ached so badly she could hardly grip a pen to help her children with their homework, but she pushed through, refusing to let them see how much she was struggling. Even in those hardest years, Emma never lost her kindness. She kept a coffee can by her door, filled with spare change for anyone who needed help, despite barely scraping by herself. She'd give her last dollar if it meant someone else wouldn't go without. If a neighbor's child needed a warm coat, Emma found a way to provide one. If a struggling mother down the street couldn't afford groceries, Emma left a bag of food on their doorstep in the dead of night, never taking credit for it. She never complained, never asked for handouts, and never let her children feel like they were missing out. Instead, she taught them resilience, strength, and the value of giving. Lessons that would stay with them long after they left the little house in Maple Ridge. Actually, there was a time when her home had once been a symbol of love, a place where dreams took root and laughter filled the air. Jack had painted it blue, Emma's favorite color, coating every wooden plank with the same care he had given to their life together. She could still remember the summer afternoons when they worked side by side, his hands steady as he brushed long strokes of paint across the siding, pausing only to flash her a teasing smile. They had planted roses in the garden, imagining a future where their children would chase fireflies in the yard and one day grandchildren would play beneath the shade of the old maple tree. Back then, the house had been alive. The front porch was sturdy, welcoming visitors with its warm, freshly stained wood. The kitchen smelled of fresh bread, and the living room was always filled with the hum of conversation or the crackle of a fire in the winter. Even the little imperfections, the scuff marks on the doorframe where the kids had measured their height, the squeaky step that Jack always promised to fix, felt like pieces of a life well lived. But now, the blue had dulled to a weary gray, weathered by time and neglect. The porch steps creaked dangerously underfoot, their once solid beams softened by years of rain and snow. The roof sagged, the gutters hung loose, and the windows rattled in their frames when the wind picked up. The garden, once bursting with color, was now an overgrown tangle of weeds, the roses long withered and forgotten. The laughter that had once echoed through the halls had faded, leaving only the whispers of memories in its place. Still, Emma couldn't bring herself to leave. Every worn floorboard, every crack in the walls held a piece of her heart. The dent in the kitchen counter from when Jack had dropped a skillet, the faint outlines of crayon drawings on the hallway wall, the the bedroom door that still bore Jack's initials carved into the wood. All reminders of a life that had once been whole. She had lost so much already, and the thought of letting go of the house felt like erasing the last traces of the man she had loved. One stormy night in 1982 was burned into Emma's memory. She had been standing at Miller's gas station counting the last $20 she had for groceries when she noticed a young man in a soaked military jacket pleading with the clerk. "Please," he begged, his voice urgent. "I lost my wallet, but I have to get back tonight. It's important." "No cash, no gas," the clerk replied without sympathy. "Rules are rules." Emma took in the sight of the young man, exhausted, drenched, yet standing tall despite his desperation. He reminded her of Jack. Without a second thought, she stepped forward and handed him her last $20. "Take it," she said, holding them out. The young man's eyes widened. "Ma'am, I can't," he protested, glancing down at her worn shoes and the patched sleeves of her coat. "That's too much." Emma only smiled. "Someone helped me once," she said softly, thinking of the neighbors who had brought food after Jack's funeral when she had barely been able to function, let alone cook for her children. "Just get where you need to go." He took the money with shaking hands, his voice thick with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you." "No need," Emma said, giving his shoulder a gentle squeeze before walking away. That week, Emma's children ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner, but she never regretted it. She had done what she could, and that was enough. Life moved on, the young man's face faded from memory, and the years stretched on, until 40 years later, when the sound of approaching engines shattered the quiet of her street. Emma was on her porch, struggling to fix a broken railing, when the ground trembled beneath her feet. She turned to see massive military Humvees turning onto her road, followed by trucks loaded with construction supplies. More vehicles followed, filling the street. Her heart pounded. Had something happened to her son, David, who was stationed overseas? A tall man in a dress uniform stepped out of the lead vehicle. Though his hair had grayed, he carried himself with commanding presence. Sunlight glinted off the medals on his chest as he approached. "Mrs. Carter," he called, his voice steady. "I've been looking for you for a very long time." What happened next would prove that no act of kindness is ever forgotten. Emma clutched the railing, fear gripping her chest. "Is it David? Has something happened to my son?" The officer gave her a reassuring smile. "No, ma'am. Your son is just fine." He stepped closer, and something about his face stirred a distant memory. "I'm General Matthew Reynolds," he said, "and I'm here about something that happened at Miller's gas station, about a $20 bill that changed a young Marine's life." Emma's breath caught. Slowly, like a faded photograph coming back into focus, the memory returned. A rainy night, a desperate soldier, her last $20. "That was you?" she whispered. His voice softened. A young Marine, soaking wet, trying to get back to base before deployment. He met her gaze. "You never even asked why," he continued, his voice low and rough. "You just looked at me, saw me, and handed me that $20 bill without hesitation." "I thought you were crazy." A stranger, helping another stranger like that. Emma's legs trembled, and she sank onto the porch step. "Did you make it?" she asked. 10 minutes before curfew," he nodded. "Deployed to Lebanon the next morning. That $20 got me back in time and saved my career." He gestured toward the trucks behind him. "But it did more than that. It taught me what kindness could be. Not just words or gestures, but real, life-changing kindness. It stuck with me all these years." He swallowed, his gaze locking with hers. "You didn't just help a desperate soldier that night, Emma. You gave him hope when he had none left. And now, I'm here to repay that kindness." Workers in military fatigues had already begun unloading tools, measuring her porch, inspecting the roof. Emma watched in stunned silence. "What? What's happening?" The general smiled. "A lot of Marines come from Maple Ridge. When they heard about a widow who once gave her last dollar to help one of our own, Sarah, Emma's longtime neighbor, hurried outside with coffee and donuts, tears in her eyes. More neighbors appeared, drawn by the commotion. Whispers turned to stories about the lunch money Emma had given their children, the gas money that had gotten them to job interviews, the coffee can by her door that had helped so many. "We've got 50 Marines here today," the general continued, motioning to the men. "Some active duty, some retired, all volunteers. Master Sergeant Collins is a contractor, Captain Ramirez owns a landscaping business, and Lieutenant Harris is an electrician." As Emma watched in awe, they got to work with military precision. "You'll be staying with Sarah for a few days," the general told her. "By the time you come back, that roof won't leak, those steps won't creak, and that garden—" He glanced at the overgrown roses. "Well, my mother was a gardener too. We know what roses mean to a home." Over the next week, Emma's home transformed before her eyes. The old peeling paint was replaced with a fresh coat of blue, the exact shade Jack had chosen years ago. The garden was cleared and replanted with roses. The broken porch swing was found in her garage and carefully restored. "Woman, evening." The general called her outside. Several Marines carried the swing onto the newly rebuilt porch. "We found this while fixing the garage," he said softly. "Some of the guys stayed late restoring it. Hope you don't mind." Emma traced her fingers over the smooth wood, memories rushing back. "How did you know?" The general smiled. "Your son told me, said some of his best childhood memories were falling asleep in that swing while you told him stories." By the final day, Emma's house stood tall and proud again. The porch swing swayed in the breeze. The garden bloomed. "Why all this?" Emma asked the general, her voice thick with emotion, her hands trembling slightly as she held the small package. "It was just $20. "Because that night," he said, his gaze steady and sincere, "you taught a young Marine a lesson he never forgot, that the greatest acts of service don't always happen on the battlefield. That kindness matters, even when it costs us something, especially when it costs us." He handed her the small package, his eyes glistening with unspoken gratitude. Emma's fingers gently tore at the wrapping, her breath catching as she pulled out a coffee can painted in Marine Corps colors, rich scarlet and gold, with her name carefully written along the rim. "We started a fund," he explained, his voice softer now, "so you can keep helping others, without it hurting you. Every Marine who's heard your story has contributed, and there are a lot of us, Emma, more than you'd ever imagine. Your kindness went far beyond that rainy night." Emma's eyes brimmed with tears, the weight of his words settling into her chest. The transformation had been gradual, but undeniable. The peeling paint on her house had been replaced with a fresh, welcoming coat of soft blue, accented by pristine white trim. The broken-down porch that once creaked under the slightest weight was now sturdy and beautifully crafted, its steps adorned with polished wood and elegant railings. Flower beds bloomed with vibrant colors, roses, daisies, sunflowers, all planted and tended to by the Marines who visited regularly, always with a smile and some sort of baked good in hand. They mended her roof, fixed her fence, even installed a brand new mailbox, its shiny metal glinting in the sunlight. What was once a house slowly crumbling under the weight of time and neglect had become one of the most beautiful homes in Maple Ridge. Emma's kitchen was stocked with food she could never afford before, the pantry filled by generous donations from people she'd never met, and the old rickety chairs she'd once feared would collapse beneath her guests had been replaced with sturdy, handcrafted ones, gifts from Marines who insisted she deserved something better. But the greatest treasure of all was the coffee can that still sat by her door, just like before. Only now it never sat empty. Loose change, bills of all sizes, even handwritten notes of appreciation found their way inside. Sometimes Marines stopped by simply to share a meal, swap stories, and remind her how much her small act of kindness had meant to them. Emma's life was no longer about survival. It was about living, giving, and feeling the same warmth she had once shown to a desperate young Marine on a rainy night, because kindness has a way of taking root, growing into something far greater than we ever imagined. Just ask Emma. She'll tell you from her porch swing, surrounded by roses that bloomed from a single act of generosity on a rainy night long ago. If this story touched your heart, tap that like button and subscribe. Share one word in the comments that captures how it made you feel. Until next time, keep believing in the power of kindness.